in college. So if you go back to like my first videos on Instagram, it's literally me in my apartment, just like this, like, hey, this is what I'm testing, or here's the deal I'm analyzing, or this is what I'm up to today. And I made it a habit every single day, no matter how cringy it was, to put up the camera to your face and click record. People, it's kind of like wake up 2 years later and like, how did you get verified? How did you, dude? I've been posting videos on Instagram every single day, every other day for the last 3 years now. It's a natural progression. I want to do the same thing. All right, post a video every single day, and they do it for a week, and then they forget about posting it.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Millionaire Secrets. This is Jeff Lerner, your host. Always excited to be with you for another installment of amazing conversations with amazing entrepreneurial humans. I am joined today by Antoine Martel. He's a 25-year-old real estate investor from Toronto. Started real estate investing in college, did his first deal from his dorm room. Since then, it sounds like, unless he was one of those prodigies that started college when he was 12, it sounds like it's all happened pretty fast. Done over 200 real estate projects, has a $14 million plus real estate portfolio. And I think perhaps the thing he's most excited about is he's created a ton of positive cash flow for his clients and people that he's shown how to do turnkey real estate investing. Antoine, welcome to Millionaire Secrets.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it. And thanks for the great introduction.
Yeah, well, I'm grateful you're here. I will set this up by saying I'm a dabbler in real estate investing. I'm a hardcore online business owner, digital entrepreneur, but I see real estate as the long-term wealth vehicle that I want to leave. You know, I think the world is crazy and chaotic and only deteriorating in that way. And so in order to make sure that my great grandkids are safe, I think real estate's the move.
Yeah.
So that's where I shift my wealth. But you figured out how to start early and actually build wealth with it. So I would like to hear, can you take us back to that dorm room?
Yeah. So that's a great point that you made is really why we'll get into that later, but why it's turned into kind of like a family company now, where every family member is a part of the business now, and we're all part of it because we know that we're creating all this wealth for the future generations to come through this business. And a lot of people look at real estate like that. You know, they have a education or some other business in whatever field, healthcare, for example, and they're making cash in that field. And then they put it into real estate as like kind of a safe vehicle for future generations. So the way that I got started, I was in college. I was junior year in college. I was graduating in a year and a half, 2 years, and I was kind of sitting there. My major was entrepreneurship I was studying at a college here in Los Angeles. And I was like, man, I graduated in a year and a half. I'm studying entrepreneurship. Like, I don't want to go and work for somebody after graduating. I want to do my own thing. I want to start my own company, do my own business. And I didn't really have any great big idea. I mean, this is like 2016, and like apps were still hot. Like making an iOS app was still like the thing to do. And it just wasn't that interesting to me because I made an app in high school actually and hired a team in India to make it. And I had already gone through that, and everybody in college was kind of like their first time getting into that. And I just wasn't part of it. Went to a real estate seminar in Los Angeles, actually. My junior year taught us about flipping houses, wholesaling, apartment buildings, how to look at the numbers, what the numbers look like. Even went to some projects in LA that were, people were flipping houses, and I just became addicted to it. I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to do this. I want to turn this into a business. The money's great. It's nice to like get out of the office and go tour these projects and see a real thing that you're doing and creating. And after that, I kind of just started networking my ass off in LA with people that were flipping houses, people that were investing out of state, people that were doing ground up construction projects. Cause I was leveraging my college studentness to get in coffee shops and, lunches with these people, because I was like, hey, I'm taking a real estate course at LMU. Like, can I come and have like coffee with you? Like all these big guys were, yeah, sure. Come. I'd love to tell you how I did it, blah, blah, blah. Like 200 coffee meetings later, I even moved my classes from like 5 to 10 PM so I can go network with these guys and gals during the day, have coffee with them. And like after 200 of those meetings, I was like, man, I really can, with my resources, I really won't be able to invest here in California, especially in Los Angeles. So I need to start broadening my horizon geographically. And that's what led me to out of state investing. And, my family had $40,000 saved up that they were willing and looking to invest. And I was like, well, there's no way in hell we're doing anything here in Los Angeles or in California. So out of state's the way to go. Started doing research on all these markets, found out there's a couple great markets where you can invest with that kind of money. And those were, Memphis, Cleveland, St. Louis, all these places in the Midwest and in the South. And I did that so that was my junior and senior year, was really just meeting all these different people and learning as much as I possibly could. A couple of months before graduating, my last semester, senior year, bought a house in Memphis for 35 grand, renovated it for 5 grand, cash out refinance, pulled all the money out of that deal. And then kind of like, it was like graduation day and looking at my dad, like, all right, like, we did this deal, we got our money back. Like, I think we have something here. We finally have something that works after trying a bunch of stuff over the last few years. And I ended up graduating college and then just kept growing a family portfolio. Graduated May 2017. By December 2017, had about 8 to 10 single family homes in our portfolio, and then realized that we had ran out of money. So that original $40,000, was tapped out and was in all these 8 properties that we bought. And then what happened is our friends and family members started asking, what's Antoine doing after graduating college? What's he up to? And, he's growing a rental property portfolio for the family in Memphis, Tennessee. And then people's brains kind of, exploded here in California because of like, Memphis, Tennessee, why Memphis, blah, 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 blah. And we started selling properties in our portfolio to these friends and family members and started, calling them turnkey rental properties. So that has led into what we are today. So that really started like beginning of 2018. A couple of years later, we're doing 10 to 15 houses a month that we're buying, rehabbing, renting out, and then reselling to friends, family, and more people. And that's where, like in the introduction, creating $50,000 a month in cash flow or passive income for these clients. So that's where we are today and kind of our story of how we got here.
Hey, sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to let you know you can get a free copy of my book, The Millionaire Shortcut, which shows you the fastest way to become a millionaire in the new economy. And there's a special link just for this episode in the description. So thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. Well, very cool. First of all, congratulations. When I was 25, I was a jazz piano player making, if I was lucky, $40,000 a year. Teaching some piano lessons too to bratty kids that didn't want to be there. And you're way ahead of most people's life track. So that's amazing. I will say I've done this, I don't know, this may be like 130 of these interviews. And you're the first person I've ever spoken to who actually majored in entrepreneurship in college. And in fact, it's not even necessarily a given that the people I talk to even went to college. None of that's required, but I'm curious, did you get a ton of actual entrepreneurial, like real world value out of that study?
So out of that study, I would say yes and no. I think it was a way for me to get through college a little bit easier.
Right.
Because if I was in business management, it would be more like, here's your business. How do you run and manage the people within your company? And this team and this team, how do they intermingle or whatever? Whereas the entrepreneurship program was more like, hey, at first day of the semester, hey, these are all the classmates. You guys are going to form 6 teams and you guys are going to come up with a business idea. And at the end of the semester, you guys are going to pitch in front of a real panel of investors and they're going to give you your grade. And I was like, that's way more fun to me, going from like 0 to 1 in a semester than doing like, a business management kind of course. So I would say yes. I mean, in that program, you also had to do like, accounting and finance and all the math and stuff. So you still had that kind of general business sense, but more of like kind of flip-flop the business management courses out for more like startup courses. And so I think it was just like really good muscle memory, I guess, experience. Because, I had gone and like done a bunch of product pitches and then like was part of startup weekend and ended up winning that, event as well, just because the muscle memory was there. And I think the more reps you can get from taking a business from 0 to 1, the better that you're going to get. I mean, I've started probably 20 companies from middle school all the way up to college. Right. So it was just a matter of time before one of them stuck.
Are you comfortable if I ask how much you spent on your 4-year college education?
Oh yeah, great question. Yeah, you can ask me anything. I'm a
Okay.
open book. So I actually went to community college for 2 years, so that was free.
Yeah.
And then my university, so in high school I had like a 3.0 GPA. Applied to a bunch of colleges, nobody wanted me. I was like, all right, screw this. I'm not going to go pay like I was taking community college in San Francisco, so University of San Francisco offered me, and it was like 80 grand a year for 4 years. And I'm like, Jesus, there's
Right.
no way I'm doing that. So I went to community college, $0. I think it was literally $1,000 a semester. So $4,000 or whatever the number was. So I did 2 years there. Then I had like a 3.8 GPA in community college. It was way easier than my high school was because I went to private high school. And then with that GPA, then I reapplied to all these schools. And then now all these schools were like, yeah, we'd love to have you. And so I went to LMU and I paid, I think, $25,000 a year. So the total tuition was like $50,000. And my parents paid for it, thankfully. And then about a year after graduating, I actually wrote them a check on Christmas Day to pay them back for my college education.
That's fantastic. I'm curious. I mean, you may get where my question is headed. Like from an ROI perspective, and also just from like a raw necessity perspective, given that a lot of our audience is operating with very meager resources.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that $50,000 investment into 2 years of an entrepreneurship program was necessarily a good ROI investment to get you where you are? Or do you think that there might have, in hindsight, been a more efficient way to do it capital-wise?
Yeah. So I think with my situation, it was worth the investment for a couple of reasons why. And I guess I chose this university and this program for those reasons, being in the entrepreneurial program instead of being at some other college that only had like a business management kind of
Right.
degree. So I was very choosy about the university that I wanted to go to and for what reasons. So I think there was a couple of reasons why I think it paid off. First of all, it bought me time to be able to figure out what that business venture was. So like, for example, okay, I didn't go to college, then what? Like, what would I have been doing? I probably would have just been like living at my parents' house, like testing a bunch of things, which could have led to another business or another idea. Yes. But I think it bought me time to really like those 2 years where I was just like networking every single day online with people that were investing in California or out of state. Like that is what got me to the point where I am today. Those 2 years of not making a dollar, just literally learning the business inside and out and all the different ways to invest. So that time was kind of bought by going to university. And
Yeah.
then after university, that network that I built, I don't know what kind of price tag you can put on that, but I will tell you, I mean, right after university, I moved out with two of my best friends that I played college soccer with. Now both of those people work in our company. One of them, even, we went and started a wholesaling business to wholesale properties to the turnkey company. And I would have never met these people if I had not gone to university and was part of the entrepreneurial program, because these guys, right after college, they were the same mentality. I don't want to work for somebody else. I want to start my own thing, or I want to work at a startup, and be part of this like creative, fast-paced environment. And a year after they graduated, I hired both of them, and now they're working on our team now.
Cool. Yeah. That's one of the things I hear people say a lot is that the real value of education now,
Yeah.
in certain fields is the networking,
Yep.
getting
Yep.
access. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And also there was some really good, so there's also metrics about, if anybody's listening and going to college or their kids are thinking about going to college, I mean, there's data and statistics for like entrepreneurial programs about the percentage of professors that actually own their own companies.
Right.
And so that to me was like the biggest thing. Like, why am I going to listen to some professor about starting a company if the guy's never done anything himself? And so it was, I think they had like a 90 or 96% of the people in the entrepreneurship program had started their own company in the past. I mean, one of my professors was Paul Orfalea, the founder of Kinko's, and had $1 billion exit. And he was, we had a class with him every week. I mean, a price tag on that was, Yeah, and his connection and network, and we had, even had at the end of the year, he connected us, and we went to his house in Santa Barbara and had a networking event and that kind of thing. So, really, really great opportunities that came from that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that right there answers my question. Is it? I mean, I would pay $50,000 just to know the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, relationships are so valuable. So that's fantastic. I appreciate that question. I have kind of a chip on my shoulder with what I call big education, which I think is just so expensive, so drawn out and inefficient, and largely, and I applaud you for finding the sliver where this was not the case, but largely operates on a false premise that, like, check the boxes, trade us a bunch of money, go into a bunch of debt, get the degree so you can get the job, and then you'll have the life that you want. Because I don't see it. I don't see it happening for most people.
Yeah. For most people, I think I was a special circumstance, and like you said, a perfect way to put it. I found the sliver that kind of made it work for me. And I mean, everybody's kind of unique. Not everybody has parents that are willing to spend the money. And I think I had $5,000 in debt after college, and it was like a federal grant at a 1% interest rate for 30 years. It was something ridiculous. Like it was like $10 a month or something for 30 years. So yeah, I made it work for me is the best way that I can put it. I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have the parents to pay for it, or if I didn't have the grades, or if I wasn't good in school. Would have been a way different story. That's for sure.
So I'm curious, or I'm interested. I'm much more than curious, especially as somebody who's starting to do a lot more real estate investing. The idea of out-of-state investing, particularly where you're acquiring, is most of your portfolio single families?
Most of the portfolio that we own long-term is actually multifamily.
Okay.
The business, so you can think about it two different ways. So the business, or like the active income, the main business that produces the cash, is the turnkey company. And so that's the company that's all single family, buy, rehab, rent, and resell 10 houses a month, let's say. And then a lot of that cash, we've taken that cash and then bought for the family, for example, kind of you're talking about generational wealth. We do that mostly in multifamily. If you have the cash to be able to buy those properties, it's just much easier to manage and maintain long-term.
Right.
It's one roof instead of 40 roofs, right? So it's just a little bit easier to maintain if you have the ability to buy one of those properties.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're validating so much of what I've been sort of conceptualizing and really digging in to understand over the last 2 years. Because since my education companies, I'm agnostic. I don't care how people start a business and make money. I do a lot of stuff on the internet, but it doesn't have to be. I look at the internet and real estate as kind of like the two greenest pastures of entrepreneurship. But I feel like the internet offers a lower risk to reward ratio for most people starting out. Like, for example, they don't have $40,000 to start, right? Like if you have $4,000 to start, real estate's a little tougher. But I very much believe in generating active income for me on the internet and converting that into real estate. But what you said, where it's like multifamily is more of the long-term wealth vehicle, whereas single family is more of the lower price entry point, almost like business opportunity model. And I know a number of people that do kind of what you're saying. They acquire, renovate, and rent single family properties in these lower cost Midwestern markets. But I've always wondered about that. Like, how do you quality control the renovation portion of that? Because I know how you could go into one of those markets and, you could put up bandit signs and acquire properties probably. But then I've just had such a bad experience with out of town contractors that I can't supervise.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
I mean, just imagining like you're renovating the neighbor's house, you would even have problems, like, or even your own house. I mean, it's even a challenge to get somebody to come and do stuff at my house, right?
Right.
So now people are like, how the hell am I going to manage it 2,000 miles away when I don't know a soul there?
Especially when somebody else's money is hanging in the balance.
Yeah, especially. Yeah. So a couple of ways that we've done it. It's really like building a great foundation of a team on the ground. So that starts all with property management. So finding a great property management company that has contractors, that has realtors, that has, title company connections, that has, been in the business or market for 10 or 20 or 30 years. So that's the key, like team member number one is these people that are well integrated in the system. They manage, like our property management companies manage over 1,000 doors each. We have one for every market that we're in. And so, if a roof caves in, if somebody drives into the house, they need to call somebody to go and repair and make those repairs. And they're not going to call somebody that's going to take 3 times as long and charge 3 times as much. They're going to find somebody that's good, reliable, and is going to stick to the budget, right? So these property management companies have like a lot of these contractor relationships. And normally what we do is, again, start with those property managers and then say, hey, you have, contractors you can refer us to or that can do the work on these properties. And normally we start there with those contractors and actually have the property management company manage those renovations, kind of just like they would a normal work order.
Are they typically willing to do that on a contingency that they're going to get the property management business, or do they mark up the contractor fees for managing?
So and that's the kind of like the cool thing about the way that I approach them. So let's say I'm going to a new market. So let's say Detroit, for example. So I cold call property management companies in Detroit. Hey, my name's Antoine Martel. I'm looking to come into Detroit. We're doing, 10 houses a month in Memphis and Cleveland. I want to do the same in Detroit. How many properties do you manage? If I come to you and buy properties with your, for example, your agent. So a lot of these property management companies have like realtors on staff, pretty much because they're doing like leasing agents. So to sign leases, normally you need like a realtor to sign the lease.
Right.
So, hey, I want to use somebody from your team to submit the offers. I want to use somebody from your contractor side to do the renovations. I'll also pay somebody on your team to manage that renovation. And then after that, I want you to manage the property, and I'm going to sell that property, bring in a new buyer to buy that product or that property. I'll connect you with them and you can have that relationship long-term. We're out of that equation after 90 days or 60 days. And so they're kind of just seeing like dollar signs and their business scaling up with us throughout the entire process. I keep them involved and keep them kind of compensated for what they're doing. And so that's kind of the unique way that I'm able to go to the owners of these property management companies and really get them to open up to us and really like open up the floodgates to scale together.
So you're not acquiring the single family properties with an eye towards a long-term rental. You're actually trying to add value through the renovation and finding a tenant, and then you're going to sell it as a pre-rented investment property, basically.
Yep, exactly. So we'll go buy it, we'll renovate it, rent it out. Of course, we do the numbers on the front end to make sure like it's something that's going to cash flow for our client, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, we do all that math up front, and then when we go and sell it, we sell it to our client and say, hey, here's the property, here's the professional photos, here's the lease, and then here's an Excel spreadsheet of all the math about the property. So yeah, we make it really straightforward and simple for our client.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. And I will share that, the light bulb went off that my experience with out-of-town contractors is when I got roped into doing these flip houses in another town. Yeah. And the difference is it's a flip. So there's no property management company. So there's nobody on the ground there has an incentive to supervise the project. So you're literally just relying on the good faith of contractors, which is basically like relying on the refrigeration in hell. I mean, it just ain't there. No offense to contractors, but flipping houses is way different.
It's a whole different ball game. I mean, you have to really get creative and you have to really rely on the realtor now. So now you would kind of approach the realtor and be like, hey, I want to submit 10 or 20 offers a month with you. We're going to get 3 or 4 of those properties. Whatever properties we buy, I'm going to pay you a project management fee of $1,000, $2,000 per house that we get for you to manage the construction. So that's one of the ways that I've heard other people doing it, and kind of how I would do it because you need somebody you cannot manage a contractor from afar. It needs to be somebody there local.
There's all these high priced real estate seminars out there. I feel like we're recording one for free right here. People,
I know.
I mean, seriously, like again, I know enough to be dangerous, and I've been in the game on and off for several years, and now I'm really kind of emphasizing real estate for my business as a piece of my business. And all the stuff you're saying, I get the value of what you're saying. Like I would have paid. I mean, it's arbitrary to put a value on it, but I mean, like hundreds of thousands of dollars I would have saved, probably maybe more, if I'd had this conversation with you like 5 years ago. Like,
Yeah.
this is so valuable. And it really speaks to the value of having an expert in the industry. That's the other thing I see with real estate. And I'm saying this from experience, is that because the fundamentals of it are so sexy, the leverage and the cash on cash return potential, and just, almost beyond any other asset class. There's things you can get with real estate that you can't really get anywhere else. But because of that, it's so enticing to people who don't have the inside expertise or they don't have the relationships, and they get absolutely demolished. So I'm curious, do you think that like on that first deal with the 40 grand, buying a property that was 2,000 miles away for 35 grand and renovating it, like, did you get lucky, or was there some way that you were able to control that initial experience that became part of the formula?
Yeah. So the reason why that first deal worked, it was a lot of cold calling. So the way that I first started it was kind of the wrong way. I didn't reach out to property management. I reached out to realtors because I was like, oh, the realtors have the deal. I just need a deal. No, you need the team. The deals are always going to be there.
Right.
You can go to Zillow right now and find a bunch of deals in Memphis that are deals. Doesn't mean you're going to perform it. It's just like on a piece of paper, but how do you make that piece of paper a reality, or that deal spreadsheet a reality? So you got to really start with property management. The way that I did it for the first deal was I went to Zillow, looked at all the listings that were like sub $50,000 and just started cold calling all these listing agents. Hey, my name's Antoine. I'm looking to invest in Memphis, Tennessee. I see you have this house available. What do you think you can get the price down to? What do you think the renovations are? Do you have any property management companies? Do you have any contractors? And after 250 phone calls to these agents, I finally found the needle in the haystack. And the one guy that picked up, that knew what the rehab budget was, had a contractor, had a property manager, had an insurance company, had a banker. And so, yeah, it was kind of luck, I guess, because, maybe I had to call 5,000 people, but I got lucky where it was, 250 phone calls instead of, 2,500 phone calls to finally find that needle in the haystack person that, kind of had everything that I needed to make that first deal a success.
Well, I'm going to give you more credit than you're giving yourself. You've said a few things here. You said that since you were, I think, in middle school, you started, what'd you say, 10 or 20 companies?
Yeah.
Finally got one to hit. You said that in college, your last 2 years, you went to 200 coffee shop meetings with experts before you put in $1.
Yeah.
You said you called 250 realtors until you found one. I mean, I'm hearing a theme here, which is consistency, discipline, research, and maybe you weren't doing that when you were in middle school, but I mean, maybe you would. The thing is, most people, you can say, oh, well, I got lucky. I could have had to call 2,000. Most people would have quit after 3.
Yep. And that's the biggest thing. I mean, I have a pretty big following on Instagram now. And yeah, people DM me all the time and say, hey, Antoine, I listened to your podcast and I tried to cold call all those agents you told me, and I just, nobody's answering. My first thing, how many did you call? Oh, I called 7 people. And I'm like, yeah, maybe you forgot the part of the podcast where I said I called 250 people. Like, right. People are just not putting in the work, and they're like, yeah, just figuring out every reason to kind of give up. Whereas me, on the other hand, it was like every reason to kind of make it work. Like, we had pivoted so many times on the strategy, from in-state to, flipping houses in Fresno to, Lake Tahoe to, all these kinds of things, and just kind of kept expanding and pivoting until there was finally like light at the end of the tunnel, which was out of state, single family homes in our price point.
Yeah. I mean, I applaud you. I know what that kind of consistency takes. I'm one of those people that's just wired for it. I tell people all the time, people ask how I started what I'm doing now. We did Entre Institute, my education company. We had 60,000 paying students last year, and we're targeting 250,000 this year. Like, it's a big, booming, growing thing. And people are like, oh, no fair. He built it in 2 years. What? I tell them, I spent a year making free videos and putting them out to the internet, not selling anything, not asking for anything other than, hey, if you enjoy this, maybe give it a like and share it with a friend. And I was testing all these different angles, all these different value points, all these different, putting all these hooks in the water, not to say who's going to buy from me, but to say, what are people interested in? Do they want to learn about affiliate marketing? Do they want to learn about real estate investing? Do they want to learn about how to get up early in the morning? Do they want to learn about having better habits, having better relationships? Like, I was testing all this stuff. And, at the end of a year, I had 300, I did almost one a day. I had 300 data points of videos that I could look at and see what got engagement, what got shared, right? And I was then able to zero in and define what the unique angles were that were going to get traction in the market. And I tell people that, I'm like, you can literally start a gazillion-dollar company with nothing if you'll put enough value out to the market and do enough research to figure out where the market sensitivity is. And it's the same thing. They make like 4 videos.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, go ahead. No, sorry. I get all pontificating about this because it's like so frustrating.
Yeah, me too. I mean, people are like, how the hell did you get 80,000 followers on Instagram? And it's like, well, in college, so if you go back to like my first videos on Instagram, it was 2018, right when I started doing the turnkey stuff. And it's literally me in my apartment, just like this, like, hey, this is what I'm testing, or here's the deal I'm analyzing, or this is what I'm up to today. And I made it a habit every single day, no matter how cringy it was, to put up the camera to your face and click record. And then, people, it's kind of like wake up 2 years later and like, how did you get verified? Dude, I've been posting videos on Instagram every single day, every other day for the last 3 years now. So it's not like I paid somebody to kind of get me verified or whatever. It's a natural progression. And people just, I want to do the same thing. All right, post a video every single day. And they do it for a week and then they forget about posting. And
so where do you think you got that consistency muscle from? Because it is literally the single biggest factor that I see in people's success. Like, where did that come from? I haven't figured out how to train it. So is it there?
Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know if it comes from you naturally. It was just like, for me, it was just fun. Like when I was growing up, what I would do is kind of drain my bank account and put it all into a savings account. So I couldn't see, I think I was like 13 or 14 years old. I would drain my checking account, put it all into my savings. And then I would like pretend like, oh, okay, I only have $100. Now, how am I going to get it back up to $1,000? And it was just like fun for me to come up with these creative ways. And that's why I say, like, I started so many different companies and stuff, because every single company was like, how does Antoine go from $100 to $1,000? As soon as I hit $1,000, drain the bank account, put it in the savings. And I don't know, for me, it was just fun. I think I was just kind of born with it. I mean, growing up, my mom had a ton of different companies. My parents had a ton of different companies, and I was a part of those companies, like, giving samples at Whole Foods or Trader Joe's and giving product away and doing all this kind of stuff, which, helped me with the entrepreneurial spirit. But for me too, it was just so much better than school or learning about math. It was like, how do I turn this $100 into $1,000 creatively, starting with $100 budget? There's, it's very limiting on the amount of stuff that you can do. So
you grew up with entrepreneurial parents?
Yep. Very entrepreneurial. So we moved from Toronto to Bay Area, San Francisco in 2000. And then my parents bought a house, a year after we came here. My dad had a full-time job. He was like traveling every single week. And then my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And then she would also have these side companies or companies that she was doing. So she didn't have a job, but she would have all these side businesses and stuff like that. And, I'd see my dad on the weekends. And then during the week, it was kind of like with my mom, and she was there, working on whatever company she was working on at the time. She had like a low carb health store. Then she had a sauce company. Then she had, she had this other company where they would make food for families and sell food to families, like Tuesday night supper club. So I was kind of like saw all these different things growing up. And then I was like, man, this is cool. I want to do that. And so I think that's definitely part of where that entrepreneurial spirit came from.
So I'm curious, why did your family move from Toronto to San Francisco? They moved from like super high cost of living to super high cost of living. So clearly that was the motivation.
Yeah, so we got, I mean, in 2001, it was a little bit different. Like we bought the house in the Bay Area for like $650,000 or $700,000. So it was much cheaper than it is now, like 3 times that price. But we moved because I think my parents were sick of the cold. And wanted to get away from the snow, didn't want to shovel snow anymore. And then my dad was working at a big tech company, SaaS company. And so he was also just asked like, hey, if I want to do a job transfer, like what options do you have? And they said Paris, France or San Francisco. And he's like, well, I don't want to be crammed in a Paris, France apartment. So let's explore the San Francisco thing, and got approved for the job transfer to be able to come to the States, and they would actually sponsor him. So in 2010, that's when we got our citizenship as well. So that was another lucky thing with doing a job transfer route to actually come to the States. Yeah.
And then if I read your bio right, through this real estate investing, you've been able to help your dad quit his job, right?
Yep. Yeah. So he was able to leave his job, I think in 2019. He left his job, started working at, the company full time. And then 2020, my mom left her job. She was working at a hotel. So she left that job and joined the company full time. So now it's a full family business. My brother, both my parents, and then both my roommates, like I said, from college as well. I've brought them into the team too.
That's wonderful, man. That had to feel good, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it did for sure. Yeah. Well, the another one that felt good was writing the check for the college tuition a year after graduating too. Something I never thought would happen that fast. But yeah, it does feel good. And
I was able to get a scholarship in college because I played piano. So I went on a music scholarship, which even though I dropped out of high school, I should add, I'm not like some great scholastic achiever. So I can't repay my parents for my college degree, but now that you've got me thinking, I'm like, if I wanted to pay my parents back, that'd be like a really big check. Like, all that math. So yeah, I mean, I know we're about out of time. I'm curious, kind of last thing, like where do you see yourself going with this? Like, are you in like world takeover mode, or are you like, hey, I want to build it up to the point where I'm good and I'm set, and then I'm going to do other things?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So we, over the years of kind of scaling up the turnkey business, there's been a lot of ideas that have, or a lot of money that we've gushed out to different people, title companies, property management companies, wholesalers, for example, where we get a lot of the deals from. And so it's kind of normal business to be like, okay, what if we do this ourselves? And so, like the 2 roommates that I brought into the team, I, taught them how to do wholesaling. And so they've been wholesaling properties to the turnkey company. And so kind of like bringing in-house all these different facets that we are interested in bringing in-house. Like, not property management is probably not something that I want to do, because like you said, the expertise is like really important for those kinds of roles and jobs. But I mean, wholesaling, anybody with a computer and a nice click funnel can get some leads if you run Facebook and Instagram ads the right way. So I think for the turnkey business, it's also very difficult to scale. Like, we're doing 120 houses a year, right? And so going like, all right, you want to 10x that, you want to do 1,000 houses a year. Like, it's very difficult to scale that up. You're going to have to go into many more markets. The risk reward ratio is much higher to scale that quickly and that fast. So just looking at other companies or investing in other companies or people in the space is kind of something we're trying to explore, especially this year. And then also the multifamily side is something we've just like scraped the surface of. In 2019, we bought 100 units as a family. And, my goal long-term is to have like 10,000 units in that way. So that's something that you can really scale up, where you can really put a lot of effort and a lot of people against it. So that's something that I think is going to be something that I'll do long-term, because like I said, the turnkey business just doesn't have the room to grow like a syndication or buying large apartments.
Is the turnkey investor model or the turnkey single family model, is that limited by finding willing and able investors, or is it solely on the product side?
It's really limited on the product side. It's not like I can go to a factory and like build these,
Right.
oh, I have an order for 1,000 socks. All right. Click a button or send an email and, 1,000 socks are done in 3 months. You can't do that with these residential properties. Right. So, that's the issue. It's kind of like you're limited to the amount of product you can buy because it's all market dependent.
Yeah.
So that's the differentiator. I guess apartment buildings as well, but I can go buy a 300 unit apartment building, whereas in 1 year I'm buying 100 single family homes in a whole year. And one transaction I could do triple
Right.
that. So that's kind of the issue. It's not, that's the issue.
Well, good stuff, man. I'm excited to see
Awesome.
where you go. I want to see whether it's owning all the real estate in the world or the vertical integration like you're talking about. I'll be a fan, man. I'll be hitting you up on Instagram. Speaking of, how can the rest of the world come find you there or anywhere else?
100%. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Great conversation. Instagram is going to be the best way. Give me a follow and shoot me a DM. I literally go through all my DMs. So if you have any questions or want to get on a phone call with me or my team, shoot me a DM and we can help you start investing if that's what you're interested in.
Hey, if you love that interview with Antoine, I know you're going to love this one with Juan Pablo, where he goes into how to invest in real estate with no money. So check it out and have a wonderful day.